My name is Eli, and I should have died a long time ago. Not because I wanted to, but because I deserved it. Some mistakes, some choices are so unforgivable that they follow you forever. The weight of them is something you can never escape. But somehow I'm still here, still breathing, still alive. At least for now. I wasn't always a prisoner. There was a time when I was just another face in a crowded world, trying to make sense of it all. I wasn't born in a high-rise apartment or a wealthy neighborhood. I was raised in a place most people only see on the news. A run-down part of the city where crime and poverty went hand in hand. My parents were absent for most of my life, each of them lost in their own vices, and I learned early to fend for myself. If you didn't survive, you just disappeared. When I was young, I thought I could escape it all. I had dreams, like anyone else. I wanted to make a life for myself, to get out of that hole and never look back. I thought education could be my ticket, a way out. But dreams and reality don't always mix well. And soon, the harsh truth of my environment caught up with me. School wasn't where I belonged. I didn't fit in with the other kids, and the few friends I had didn't last long. We were all just trying to survive, in one way or another. I ended up working odd jobs around the city. Nothing that would make me stand out. I wasn't a criminal. Not at first. I just did what I had to get by. But after some time, that wasn't enough. The world outside had a way of pushing you into places you didn't want to go. And my downward spiral began when I found myself involved with people who weren't as innocent as I was trying to be. People who didn't care about right or wrong. They just cared about power, about money, about control. It all started with a simple job. A job that seemed harmless at the time. It was supposed to be a simple delivery. No questions asked. No real danger. I should have walked away. I should have known better. But I didn't. I took the money and did what they asked, not realizing that it was part of something much larger than I could have ever imagined. The next thing I knew, I was caught up in a mess I couldn't undo. A mistake that spiraled out of control, one bad decision after another. The authorities didn't care about my reasons. They didn't care about my background, about my history. About the fact that I wasn't really one of them. All they cared about was that I was there, involved in something they couldn't ignore. And that's how I ended up where I am now. I was convicted, sentenced to death for many crimes. I had a choice, fight to the bitter end or face my fate. And I chose to accept it. I didn't see the point in fighting. I had no future, no hope, no redemption. Death would be a release, a way to escape the life I had ruined. But the government doesn't care about redemption. They don't care about your past. They only care about what you can do for them. And when they came to me with an offer, I knew I didn't have a choice. They said it was simple. They said it would be a one-time thing. They said I would have a chance to wipe my slate clean. Of course, they didn't tell me much, but they didn't need to. I was desperate. They offered me a way out, a mission that would take me far from here, a way to redeem myself, to be useful in a way I could never be from my cell. And again, I should have said no. But when you've been rotting away in a death row cell for years, with nothing to look forward to except your own execution, you'll do anything to get out. The mission was to a distant planet, one that had been abandoned long ago, its colony lost to time. The details were vague. They said it was a retrieval mission, but it wasn't about finding answers. It was about getting rid of the past. They needed people, expendable people. People like me, who had nothing to lose. Again, they didn't tell me anything. Of course they didn't. They never do. They never tell you what you're really walking into. But the choice was clear. Go on the mission, retrieve what they needed, and in return, I'd be granted my freedom. A chance to start over. A chance to live. I should have known better, but I took the deal. And that's how I ended up here, sitting in a cramped cell aboard a transport ship, heading toward a mission that was meant to be my second chance. The ship was small, nothing compared to the sleek, polished vessels I had seen in documentaries. This was utilitarian, made for a job, not for comfort. The crew was small, just a few people. Most of them didn't even look at me. I just wasn't part of their world. They didn't know what I'd done, and I wasn't about to tell them. They had their own lives to worry about. But me, I had no life. I had nothing left. And as I sat there, waiting for the inevitable, I thought about my past, about the choices I had made, the people I had hurt. I thought about what I had lost, and what I still had left. And as the transport ship pulled away from the station, my future, or whatever was left of it, felt like it was fading into the distance. This mission, this strange, dangerous mission, was the last chance I would ever get. The air feels thin, even here in the Iron Lung. It's not because the oxygen levels are low, but because everything around me seems to press in on me. I've been stuck in this small, sealed environment for what feels like an eternity. I can't move freely. There's barely enough space to shift my legs or stretch my arms. I'm surrounded by cold metal walls and the constant steady hum of the machines. It's not much different from the cell I spent so many years in. The same suffocating sense of being trapped. But this time, I'm just further down. Much further down. The mission, they told me, was simple. A retrieval. Go to the colony's wreckage, bring whatever data we can find, and come home. That's what they said. No complications. But I'm not naive enough to believe that. Nothing is ever as simple as they make it sound. I glanced at the control panel in front of me. It's all digital now. Everything controlled by buttons and screens. I'm no expert, but I know how to follow orders. I know how to make the numbers match, to keep everything running smoothly. I run the checks as I was instructed. Oxygen levels, power systems, pressure readings. Every number falls within the acceptable range. Everything looks fine, at least on the surface. The hum of the life support systems is constant, a reminder of the isolation I feel. The mission's parameters are clear. They gave me the coordinates, a path to follow and instructions on what to do once I find the wreckage. And that's all I'm supposed to do. I'm not here to think, to question, to feel. I'm just here to work. Just here to do a job that has no room for doubt. I run the sonar check. The signal is weak. I wasn't expecting it to be strong, but it's still frustrating to see the faint blip on the screen. The colony was supposed to be here, buried beneath the water, but all I can see is dark nothingness. The faint echoes of the wreckage bounce back at me, but they tell me little. I've been following the same path for hours now, and it feels like I'm moving through an endless ocean, surrounded by an abyss that has no beginning and no end. I make the necessary adjustments. Depth control, navigation, everything still within the tolerances. Routine, no surprises. I glance at the clock, noting how much time has passed. The hours blur together, one after the other. A monotonous cycle of tasks that I have to complete. I keep telling myself that this is just part of the job, that this is what I signed up for. But deep down, I can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. I am not here by choice. They didn't give me a chance to decide. They just sent me. I remind myself that this is my only chance, my only shot at redemption. The others, people I'll never meet, people who don't know me or care about me, are safe, watching from a distance. They don't have the burden I carry, the weight of a past that won't let go. For them, this is just another mission. But for me, it's everything. A life, a future, a chance to escape the prison I've been locked in for so long. But no one told me what I'd be walking into. No one told me how this would feel. I move my hands to the control panel, adjusting the depth slightly. The sonar pings again, still weak but clearer now. We're close. It's so faint, but I know we're getting closer. My heart rate picks up. It's not fear, at least I don't think so. But there's something unsettling about the silence. The deeper we go, the more isolated I feel. The colony's wreckage should be here, just ahead. I double-check the coordinates and everything matches. But the deeper I go, the harder it is to shake the feeling that I am not just exploring the wreckage of a lost colony. I'm exploring something else. Something darker. I pull up the life support readout again. Oxygen level steady. Pressure systems within range. I've done this so many times now that it feels automatic. The job is simple. Routine. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Not on a mission this simple. And yet... The sonar blips again. Faint. Almost drowned out by the sound of the water around me. But I know it's there. The wreckage is nearby. I don't know what to expect when I find it. Data, equipment, abandoned buildings, maybe a body or two, if I'm unlucky. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here to do a job, to retrieve the data they want and then leave. That's all. I glance around the cramped space. The walls are closing in on me, just like they always have. I've been living in this isolation for so long now that it almost feels normal. But I can't forget that I'm still a prisoner, just a different kind. The machines here keep me alive, keep me functioning, but they don't free me. They don't let me go. They just keep me breathing, keep me moving forward. I adjust the navigation again, deeper, closer, and then I feel it. A shift, something in the water. A change, faint but unmistakable. The systems flicker for a moment, but I tell myself it's nothing, just the pressure of the ocean. but it lingers. The feeling. Something's not right. The sonar is faint but steady now. I can see the colony's remains on the radar, distant and eerie, like ghostly silhouettes drifting beneath the surface. The further we go, the deeper we sink, the more the darkness outside seems to press against the hull. I run my fingers over the console, my movements automatic, checking the power grid, the oxygen levels, the pressure systems. The numbers are stable, almost too stable. It's like everything's holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I glance at the clock again. The hours have blurred together, and the silence inside the iron lung is growing heavier by the minute. The soft hum of the life support systems is constant, a reminder of just how alone I am in this tiny metal coffin. I remind myself that it's just a routine mission, just another job to tick off. But there's a sinking feeling in my gut, something that I can't quite shake. The power flickers. For a moment I don't think much of it. The lights dim briefly, then brighten again, and the hum of the systems falters before stabilizing. But I can't ignore it. I check the power grid once more, and everything's fine. I am not sure why it's bothering me, but the flicker doesn't feel right. I tap at the console, making sure everything is running smoothly, but then another alarm sounds. Low pressure. The warning light blinks on, a small red indicator on the screen. It's not a major issue, I tell myself. I'm deep underwater, and the pressure is bound to fluctuate. I check the pressure gauge, but it's steady. There's nothing to worry about. But the alarm keeps blaring. I pull up the diagnostics again, checking the system readings. The pressure is stable. The numbers match what they should be. So I reset the sensors. But the alarm continues. A high-pitched whine that gets under my skin. I can't ignore it. I glance outside through the small viewpoint. The ocean is dark, silent and unnervingly still. There's no movement, no sign of anything around me. Just the faint glow of the iron lung systems, casting a pale light in the pitch-black abyss. The warning lights finally stop blinking, but it leaves an unsettling taste in the back of my mouth. Everything seems to be functioning properly again, but I can't shake the nagging feeling that something isn't right. I check the sonar once more. The colony wreckage is closer now, its outline just below me. So I adjust the navigation, steering the iron lung closer. But then the comms go dead. I freeze. The comms panel is unresponsive. No signal, no static. Just silence. The flickering screen stares back at me, mocking my attempts to get a response. I tap at the buttons, frantically trying to reset the system. I'm not supposed to be here alone. The comms are my lifeline, a connection to the rest of the world, even if it's just a one-way channel. I try to breathe through the sudden tightness in my chest. The silence is more suffocating now. The comms aren't working. The alarms were going off earlier, and the power... I don't know, it's all little things. All these small failures that shouldn't matter, but they're adding up. I force myself to focus. This isn't the time for panic. There's still work to be done. The sonar blips again, the faint signal of the wreckage just ahead. I am almost there. The mission has to be completed. I glance at the systems one more time. Oxygen levels normal, pressure holding steady. The power grid's back to normal. But the flicker of doubt is there now, gnawing at the edges of my mind. It wasn't supposed to be like this. This was supposed to be a routine mission. They gave me the coordinates, the data, and told me to retrieve this information. Simple. I adjust the depth and the angle, lowering us further down toward the wreckage. The sonar pings louder, and I can see the outlines of the colony through the water. The structures are twisted, broken like some forgotten monument to failure. But as I get closer, another flicker runs through the systems. This time, a complete shutdown of the power. The lights go out entirely. For a moment, I can't see anything. The darkness is absolute. The deep, overwhelming quiet of the ocean presses in on me, and I have to force myself not to panic. I hit the control panel again, tapping the emergency restart sequence, and after a few tense seconds, the systems come back to life. The lights flicker on again and the console displays the familiar readouts. The panic that had started to rise inside me dissipates slightly. But there's a tremor in my hands now. It's nothing, just another glitch. I've seen things like this before. So I run another system diagnostics, double-checking everything. The power grid is back to normal, the oxygen levels are stable, and the pressure is still holding. I breathe out slowly. But I can't shake the feeling that something is watching me. The sonar is still steady. The wreckage is just ahead, but every part of me feels like it's being pulled into something darker. The deep, crushing weight of the water outside, the growing tension in my chest, the eerie stillness. It's like the ocean itself is waiting. I make my final descent toward the wreckage. The sonar pings louder now, as if it's calling to me. I tell myself that I've worked in worse conditions, in tighter spaces. This is nothing. Just a job, just a mission. But deep down, I know it's more than that. And as the wreckage comes into view, a sense of dread washes over me. I can't explain it, it's just a feeling. But something is waiting for me out there, hidden in the darkness. And I'm getting closer. But I don't know what I'll find. The wreckage stretches before me like a graveyard swallowed by the abyss. Twisted metal beams, collapsed structures and shattered domes. The remains of what was once a thriving colony. Now, nothing more than debris scattered across the ocean floor. My sonar outlines the ruins in rough, flickering shapes. But beyond that there is only darkness. An endless, swallowing black that seems deeper than the ocean itself. I exhale slowly, my breath loud in the cramped interior of the iron lung. Every movement inside this metal coffin feels exaggerated. The shift of my fingers over the controls, the steady rise and fall of my chest, even the soft creak of my chair. There's no sound beyond that. Just the hum of the life support systems and the occasional sonar ping, sending out waves into the void. I force myself to focus. My mission is simple. Survey the wreckage, take the necessary scans and return. A simple, mindless task, But as I navigate through the remains of the colony, a strange unease creeps into my bones. There's just no movement outside. No shifting debris, no drifting sediment stirred by my presence. The ocean should feel alive in some way, even down here. Instead, it feels like I've entered a place untouched for centuries. Untouched, yet strangely aware of me. I shake off the thought and check my instruments again. Everything is still stable. The sonar pulses rhythmically, sending back an unchanging map of my surroundings. I adjust the sub's position slightly, angling the camera feed toward what looks like the remnants of a habitation module. Its walls are split open. The interior collapsed under the weight of the ocean. I take a few scans, log the data and move on. Then the lights flicker. Only for a moment, barely long enough to register, but I feel it. That split second of darkness where the hum of the system stutters, where everything inside the sub seems to contract, as if it's holding its breath. I tighten my grip on the controls. It's nothing, just a fluctuation in power. It happens. The lights stabilize again, and I try to ignore the way my pulse has quickened. So I continue the scan, move deeper into the wreckage. Then, bang. A dull, heavy thud against the hull. I freeze. The sound reverberates through the cabin, a deep, metallic groan that lingers in the confined space. My heart pounds in my ears. I glance at the sonar, expecting to see something, anything, but there's nothing there. The wreckage is still. The ocean still silent. I force myself to breathe, my fingers hovering over the controls. Debris, I tell myself. A loose piece of the wreck shifting. That's all it was. I wait a few moments, straining to hear anything beyond my own breath. Nothing. Slowly, I press forward. The sub moves cautiously through the ruins, my focus sharpening. I scan another section, more collapsed buildings, more twisted metal. The sonar pulses steadily, the echoes bouncing back like whispers in the dark. Then, another sound. A tapping. Soft, rhythmic. Not the deep, accidental impact of shifting debris. Not the groan of the hull under pressure. This is different. Deliberate. I feel a chill creep up my spine. My fingers hover over the controls, hesitant. The sonar shows nothing unusual. No movement, no anomalies. But I know I heard it. I check the external cameras, though I don't know what I expect to see. The screens show the same as before. Wreckage, darkness, nothing more. The light from the sub barely reaches beyond the immediate structures, swallowed quickly by the abyss. I swallow hard and keep moving. Then, something shifts at the edge of the sonar. A shape. Faint, almost indistinguishable from the wreckage. At first, I think it's just another collapsed structure, an odd formation of debris. But as I watch, it seems to linger just beyond my perception. And then it's gone. I stare at the screen, my chest tight. My breath is shallow now, each inhale sharp and controlled. Was it just a false echo? A glitch in the system? The tapping returns, louder this time. I immediately kill the lights, and the cabin plunges into absolute darkness. I sit still, my hands gripping the console so tightly my knuckles ache. My own breathing sounds deafening in the silence. But I listen. The tapping has stopped. Seconds pass. My entire body is tense, every muscle coiled. I stare at the sonar, waiting, expecting. And then, out of the darkness, a shadow moves across the viewpoint. My entire body seizes. It happens in less than a second, just long enough to register, just long enough for my brain to understand that something is there. Something massive. Then it's gone. I fumble for the controls, flicking the lights back on. The cabin is instantly illuminated again, the screens displaying the wreckage, the sonar back to its steady pulse. But my breathing is ragged now. My hands tremble slightly over the console. I check the sonar again. Nothing. No movement, but I saw it. I have to get out of here. I engage the thrusters, readying to ascend when, bang! A massive impact slams against the hull. The iron lung shudders violently, metal groaning, the pressure alarms flickering to life. And my stomach drops. I slam the controls, forcing the sub upward. The engines roar, thrusters firing at full capacity. The sonar begins to scream, blips of movement, shapes shifting beneath me. And there's something rising. Another impact. The hull dents inward. I don't stop, I don't think. I push the sub higher, faster. My entire body screaming with the need to get away. The sonar is blaring now. Whatever was beneath me is following. And then the comms crackle to life. A voice, distorted, faint, whispering through the static. I don't recognize it. I barely breathe as it speaks. Just one sentence. You were never alone. I don't move. I barely breathe. The whisper still lingers in the stale air, curling through the cabin like a dying breath. You were never alone. My mind tries to reject it, to cast it off as interference, a hallucination, the result of too many hours in the steel coffin. But my body knows better. There is a deep primal part of me that recognizes the weight behind those words, that knows when it has been seen. I force my hands back onto the controls, willing my fingers to stop shaking. I push the thrusters forward, commanding the sub to rise. The hull groans in protest, its engines straining against the ocean's grip. Then, the depth gauge flickers to life. 20 meters. 30. Each number is a step closer to the surface. Closer to air. To escape. The sonar pings, and my breath catches. I glance at the screen, but there's nothing. Just the same empty blue, the same blurred outlines of the wreckage. But I don't trust the sonar anymore. Not after what I've seen. Not after what I felt. The lights flicker. A brief pause, barely noticeable. But then they stutter again, dimming almost to nothing before weakly flaring back to life. The air in the cabin feels thicker. The walls closer. Then a sound. A deep muted thud reverberates through the hull. Not from the engines, not from the water. Something else. Something touching the sub. The lights flicker again. For a fraction of a second, the cabin is plunged into total darkness. And in that instant, I feel it. A shift in the air. A presence where there should be none. I stay still. My mind screams for me to run, to look, but I don't. I can't. A slow, suffocating silence spreads through the cabin. Then, the sub tilts. The hull groans under a slow, deliberate pressure, and the depth gauge freezes. Then, it drops. 30 meters, 25. I am sinking. No, I am being pulled. I push the thrusters to full power. The engines scream in protest, fighting against an unseen force. The sub trembles, metal straining under pressure. The sonar pings again. A new shape appears on the screen. It is massive. At first I think it's part of the wreckage, just another silhouette in the dark, but then it moves. Not drifting, not swimming, just closer. The sub tilts again. A slow, sickening shift. My stomach lurches. The controls feel useless in my hands. Nothing more than dead weight. Then the comms crackle again. Not static this time. Breathing. Shallow. Uneven. Inside the cabin. The lights flicker once more, and in the half second of darkness, I feel something behind me. Not touching, not moving, just waiting. I don't turn, I don't breathe. The emergency buoy. My hand moves on instinct, slamming against the release mechanism, but nothing happens. The sonar pulses again. The shape on the screen has vanished. My breath is ragged, uneven, my heartbeat a dull roar in my ears. And then the lights go out completely. Total darkness. The sub shudders. The walls feel closer, the air thicker. The darkness is not just around me, it is pressing in. Then the camera feed flickers to life. A brief glimpse through the viewpoint. And something is there. It is pressed against the glass, watching. Its form is impossible to understand, shifting in ways my mind cannot process. There are eyes, unfocused yet staring. A mouth, or something that wants to be a mouth. The image distorts, and then it is gone. The sub lurches violently. Metal screams. The walls bend. The air is forced from my lungs as the hull implodes, folding inward like paper. For a moment, there is only pressure. A slow, crushing embrace. Water rushes in, ice cold, filling my mouth, my lungs. I can't fight. I cannot scream. I simply sink. And then there is only the deep. Only the dark.